And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us today. We do have a special guest, Mr. Randy Delatte, Parish Councilman from District 8. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Thank you, Mr. McHugh, and I appreciate you inviting me here today to tell my side of the story to the rest of the people in Livingston Parish.
Well, and we're glad to have you. I think a lot of people are looking for something other than the coronavirus to talk about. You are here today to talk about drainage in your district, and we just want to jump into it. What is your interest here? Because there's a lot of different things going on. You have a drainage district in your area. It is unfunded, but parish-wide drainage has also been a discussion that has emanated at the parish council level and at a parish-wide level. So we want to hear from you. Kick it off. What is your interest here?
Well, I think parish-wide drainage and drainage in my district is one and the same. I feel like if you don't have a parish-wide plan, all you're doing is reacting. The people in Livingston Parish are tired of reacting. They're tired of every time we have a 4-inch rain, 6-inch rain, we have flooding. And everyone knows you start from the bottom up to have a drainage plan. So the first order of business would be to have a drainage plan, which probably won't happen until next year when we get the new budget. But currently, I am throwing some things out there for discussion. One is the dredging of Lake Maurepas. That's a very controversial topic that's probably organized people like environmentals and probably even the mining industry in the Watson area will probably be against this. But I want to do it not to compete against the mining industry, but I want to do it for drainage. And every drop of water in Livingston Parish drains through District 8, the district I represent. I would like to see us have a drainage-wide program where if it leaves Watson, where does it go? When it leaves Walker, where does it go? When it leaves Albany, where does it go? And that's why you have to have a parish-wide drainage plan to reach the goal of providing flood relief for the people in Livingston Parish.
Right, so water flows downstream. We know this. So, we're going to get into some specifics, especially of what you talked about in terms of, Lake Maurepas and that kind of thing, because, I guess you could say ecology of Lake Maurepas has changed, especially recently. But first, want to talk about there are funded gravity drainage districts on the western side of the parish, 1, 2, and 5. Those represent basically Denham, Walker, and Watson. There was a push right after the flood to get the drainage districts in your area and north of you funded. It did not fail. Want to talk about that first real quick. It was a post-flood effort. It was kind of a tough deal because you still had the flood on everyone's minds. It's still on everyone's minds to a certain extent. That's why we're talking about drainage today. But people were also strapped for cash, and cash was needed. So what was your thought process as that campaign was going on, and what would you have done differently?
That's a fair question. That campaign was dead on arrival, DOA. When you don't have a tax base, you don't have enough property taxes available, and the most they could have raised with a 10 mil tax was $80,000. $80,000 does not even buy a backhoe, much less provide drainage. So that project was dead on arrival. What I would do differently is I do like most of the parishes in the state of Louisiana. Our neighboring parish, Ascension Parish, has parish-wide drainage. Their lowest area is a rural parish, more rural than the district I represent. Yes, they got pumps, they got levees, they got everything needed to provide flood protection for their people. That comes from the parish. The parish as a whole needs to be talking about the parish and not the district and say, this is how I drain my district, this is how I drain my district. I'm not in favor of doing away with the districts. I'm just in favor of everyone pays the same amount of money and everyone receives the same services. And I think the only way that can be done is by parish-wide drainage, just like they do the capped outlay program, which is parish-wide.
Right. And, I'm going to throw you a quick little curveball real quick, but it is something that came out of your district, which is the new Grade D roads program. And, one of the part of that, and we've got to talk to Mr. Tracy Girlinghouse as well as Mr. Gary Frog Talbert about it. And it's true. A lot of those people on those roads, well, all of them pay property taxes into the system. So, tell us a little bit about what, people in your district what they feel like in terms of paying into the system, especially in places where they have gravity drainage and there's a sales tax, but they're not receiving a lot or any of that benefit.
Right. Those people pay that tax just like the people in that district because they do their shopping there. Their shopping's in Livingston Parish. So they pay the same thing, except if it's a millage on their property tax, they will not pay the same unless it's voted parish-wide that you do. I'm an advocate that parish-wide, everyone should pay the same thing. Getting back to the Class D roads, I'm in a minority on this on the council, but I think every road that's not a private road should be maintained by government. And the reason is, if it's a public road, you have school buses, you have garbage, you have mail people, you have law enforcement. Everyone uses a public road. And if you're going to say, well, I don't want to do this road, take it in because it's too bad of a shape. Well, some people live on roads that developers never developed. They just had some property from their family, and somebody else's family built a house, and the next person built a house. So the parish has to maintain that. I feel in the old days, we were called a police jury association, and we started the police jury association to provide local services to the people in those areas, and that includes drainage and roads. We kind of got away from the drainage and roads, and we more or less now to how people do their land use. We as a council, me included, we spend 2/3 of our council meeting time working on subdivision ordinances. That's 40 ordinances a year passed on subdivision ordinances. We have a administration that has an engineer, has a department head, has people that look at these things administratively. Then we have a volunteer citizen group that looks at this. Then it comes to us. We work this thing to death. We need to spend more time working on major problems like drainage. Recreation should be a parish-wide deal. Those things should work as a parish like most of the parishes do in the state of Louisiana.
So I threw you a curveball and you went opposite field on me, but I appreciate those statements and carry it forward. So we're talking about parish-wide drainage. You know, as you mentioned, there's some difficulty developing funding, especially for the eastern side of the parish. So in your opinion, in your mind, in your plan, what's the funding mechanism for the parish-wide drainage?
Parish-wide drainage is no mechanism for funding if you don't have a plan. So I'm going to back up and say that's the number one thing. Once you have a plan and you have a goal, I think it has to be done on a millage where everyone pays. I also believe parish-wide draining has a ability to get some grants if you have a goal or a plan. There's $1.2 billion out there. To my knowledge, we don't have a plan to get that. Surrounding parishes like Ascension, St. James, St. John does have a plan, and it affects us, their plan. So I don't believe that we can move forward without a parish-wide drainage.
So, what Mr. Delatte is discussing is a $1.2 billion community development block grant, which is being disseminated through Pat Forbes and a special, I guess you can say, political designation by the governor. And it is, everybody is divided into subsections. And of course, every 2 years, the subsections get smaller. As I understand it, I know that Denham Springs and Walker participated in phase 1 with the entire group. I'm not sure if the parish did or not. I was working on that before COVID. Now you're shaking your head. I'm going to guess that they didn't. So that is something that is being developed. There are still more chances to go after that money, but it looks like in round 1, the parish kind of missed the ball on that one. So, when you're talking about parish-wide millages, what are your feelings on, I guess you can say, the funding in those two districts as they would have been lower? So what would a millage rate be, in your opinion?
I feel 10 mills is adequate if you do it parish-wide. One of the things is, I want to get back to the capital outlay program. We tried that year after year after year to get that passed, and it never did get passed. It only got passed when we brought the whole parish in, including the municipalities. So everyone gets a share of that 1 cent sales tax, which is now 3/4 cents. Right. But everyone gets a share of that, and that's the same way for drainage. You You have to make everyone pay the same, whether it's a millage or a tax or whatever it is, and divide it out where everyone gets a share of that. We all use Livingston Parish to do our shopping in. We all reside in Livingston Parish. We all pay our taxes. Some of us have better things than some of us. But the bottom line is government is to help people who cannot help themselves. And until we unite as a parish, we're going to always have these problems. Look, Ascension Parish, when I was campaigning, I used the argument of Lincoln Parish. It had Ruston, Louisiana, rest of it rural. They had top-of-the-line recreation parish-wide, drainage parish-wide. All the money came from the college town of Ruston. Same thing in Ascension Parish. As I spoke earlier, my district touches the Ascension Parish district, and they have built levees. There's 16 pumps over there, and they're running 12 of them right now as we speak, and the water in my district is slowly starting to come up. This is before the disturbance even gets here. Their plan on the $1.2 billion is to raise Highway 22, put another set of pumps, and pump more water. What does this do to Watson, Walker? What it does to them is that water's going to have no place to go because the water's going to still be high in District 8. Every drop of water goes through the Tickfaw River, Amite River, the Virgin Canal, Blind River, all the way to the lake. Even if you dredge the mouths of the lakes, which is a word that the Army Corps of Engineers does not like to use, they saying we're going to reclaim some property by using the silt in the mouth. And that's the two projects we got going now, Amite River and Blind River mouths. Even if you got 3, 4, 5 foot of dredge material, the lake is still up here and the mouths are down here. So eventually in 2 years, it's going to fill right back up like it was. You have to have a channel through Lake Mauleport to drain Livingston Parish. If you do not have a channel through Lake Mauleport, we're still going to have the problem we have. The reason I brought shell dredging is if you allow private enterprise to get involved in this, I don't need a bunch of money to go ahead and do a study or a bunch of money to go ahead and pay for dredgers. I was killing two birds with one stone. The new technology in dredging now allows you to recover your silt just like they're going to do for the mouths, and you can reclaim property with that in the swamps. I said this many, many times about Congressman Garrett Graves. I think he has been a friend to Livingston Parish, the best congressman I've known in my lifetime. Hope he becomes governor one day. His latest deal was to cut a canal, which they're in the process of doing, from the Mississippi River and bring that fresh water into the Lake Mauleport to revitalize the lakes. This will help the fishermen, but doing high water, this is going to make the problem worse than what it is. We missed an opportunity by not adding pumps there where we could pump the water right back out. And I feel the same way. East Baton Rouge floods because when the water gets to Denham Springs, there's nowhere else to go. So it floods River Road and floods all of the low-lying areas in Denham Springs. It spreads out. But our way to get the water out is through the Mississippi River and through Lake Mauleport. If East Baton Rouge were to invest in pumps and Bayou Manchac, that water would never have to come to Denham Springs. It'd go straight to the Mississippi River. And it's the same thing with the canal that Congressman Graves getting dug. That's a 6-mile-long canal. Those pumps could pump the water right back out during high water, just like it comes back in.
So, I appreciate what you said about Garrett Graves, because there is something I wanted to bring up during this part. One is that technically the southern part of Livingston Parish is coastal because of saltwater intrusion has basically taken over Lake Pontchartrain, is now taking over Lake Mauleport. We are a coastal community. We are affected by those winds. You talked about disturbances, especially during hurricane season. A lot of that's what happened in 2016. The water in the lake was still very high. It has allowed us some access to federal funding from royalties in the oil business. However, actually, Mr. Garrett Graves is testifying today against the Great American Outdoors Act because they're trying to steal some of that money. I hope he is successful. One of the things that he has said in the past, and it lends itself to what you're saying, is that you cannot continue to wait for windfall money to come from the federal government. You have to do something on the ground. So, and you covered one of the questions I was going to ask, which was, how does what's going on in your district affect the rest of the districts? And the fact of the matter is, if the lake's high, there's nothing we can do about it. If we don't have clear channels down there, water's going to stop, especially when we have large scale rain events. So, you've already talked a little bit about some of the projects, including pumps on the other side and levees and that kind of thing. One of the things that Congressman Garrett Graves brought up was a levee district. I was supposed that might be part of a drainage district especially if we did parish-wide drainage. Want you to talk on that specifically because you mentioned levees and pumps, especially in our neighboring parishes, and then want you to kind of, go into some of the things that you'd like to see on the southern side of Livingston Parish.
Levee districts is a necessity, and that's another thing that's proven that it works. And the reason is you have St. James, St. John, Ascension, Livingston, and even you can include East Baton Rouge Parish. They all have different plans. St. James is trying to build a wall to keep the tide water from coming in. The same as with St. John. Ascension wants to pump it out quicker, so they want to get more pumps in the levee. All those things affect each other. St. James and St. John is mad at Ascension, just like Livingston's mad at them. So all this affects each other. So if you had a levee district, I want to get the parish to have a drainage plan for the parish so the parish has a plan. But just if the parish has a plan, you still affecting other parishes, and what other parishes does is going to affect you. You have to have at least 5 parishes in that plan. I love to see St. James, St. John, Ascension, Livingston, and East Baton Rouge have a levee district, and they can look at it as a whole and not just each individual parish, even though you do need that also.
So, outside of levees and pumps, there are still some canals, bayous, and that sort of thing in your district. What would be some of the, right now there is a lot of work, and especially thanks to the efforts of Congressman Garrett Graves and both Senator Bill Cassidy and John Kennedy for desnagging efforts and that sort of thing and cleaning of some larger waterways in your district. But there's still, there's a ton of waterways in your district. So what, in terms of maintenance, what would you be looking for going forward?
Bottom line is, like I said earlier, every drop of water goes through Tickfaw River, Amite River, the Virgin Canal, via the Blonde River. And so I would start from the bottom, which is at least a channel from the pass all the way to the mouths of both Blonde River and Amite River. In addition to that, we know the rivers of Amite are silted up. We know that that takes money and time to do those things. One of the projects they're going to help is they're going to raise the weir up. That project has also been afforded to us by Garrett Graves. But we don't want to raise the weir up yet until we finish the mouths. One thing is, by raising the weir up, it's going to raise the level up in Amite River, which is telling us that by more flow or more turbulence, we may have less silt. It's going to be a problem for the people who live on the Virgin Canal. Their property, their boats are going to probably have to be dredged out to launch their boats because the canal was so high. Now it's going to be up to 4 foot lower, which will be a problem for them. So everything has to work in order. Yes, all the rivers need to be dredged out. Yes, since 53 or sometime, the parish had that responsibility. No money available, couldn't do it. And you're not going to just be able to do the mouths like we did and say, okay, now we solved our drainage problem. Because you have to start from the bottom. The pass is way deep enough. The Lake Pontchartrain's deep enough. Lake Maurepas, when I was a kid, you couldn't touch bottom. Now, most of the Lake Maurepas, you don't even go over your head. And I'm not going to tell a short joke here, but I'm only 5'3", so... The problem is at least 4 foot of shells and silt in the lake that needs to be dredged. We also have a safety concern here. That's why I asked to send a letter not only to Washington, D.C., which was a copy of our Resolution X in this, but to send it to Wildlife and Fishery. Crabbing is still good in the lake, guys, and catfishing is good. If you want to fish anything else, it's not good. But people have crab traps all over the lake, and there's not a boat channel, so everybody drives all over the lake, and many of crab traps get eat up in a boat and motor. If you ever had one get caught, that's up to an hour to take it out. I know because I personally had that. We had a person that died 2 years ago trying to get a trap out of his. So maybe there's something. Wildlife and Fisheries seems to have a surplus on their budget every year. Maybe there's something they can do to make a study and mark a channel, even if they don't even drain it out. At least mark a channel right now, and that's a start. And the problem is that we have to have someone talk about it. When it has to be you, the people that's listening right now, you, the people, have to get involved. When someone comes to your house and say they run for representative or council or whatever they're running, ask them how they're going to handle flooding. If they're prepared to do their job, they should be prepared to have a plan on how they're going to handle flooding. We let people get a free pass like me and not hold them to what they promise or what they a plan they're going to have. And sometimes we just elect people that we like, or we elect by geography. The main thing is, if you want to solve this problem, hold people accountable, including me. Hold everyone accountable as elected official and start asking, how are we going to get the flood away from us? You shouldn't flood in your house if you got 4 inches of rain or even 6 inches. And that happened in the northern part of the parish not long ago. So we shouldn't have those problems. We're getting enough money that we should solve these problems. Hold us accountable, people.
So, and I appreciate what you said about Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, because, and that is another thing that our Washington delegation pushes a lot, is multiple streams of revenue, a lot of people participating in the process. Wanted to jump back real quick and say, if you are looking for information on the money we were talking about from the Community Development Block Grant, it's called the Louisiana Watershed Initiative. We did cover it a lot last fall. Unfortunately, it's kind of fallen by the wayside because of COVID. And we're already gotten past round 1 of funding. Round 2 will be in 2022. Mr. Delatte, I do appreciate you joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to end with?
We covered most everything and concerning drainage, but we as a parish have to do things as a parish and not a district, or we're never going to have animal control. We're never going to have parish-wide recreational. A lot of top-of-the-line recreational districts are in our parish. People come all over the state. But there's still lower areas of our parish have to go to other parishes to have recreation. Don't have the facilities in the parish. So those things have to work out parish-wide. Just like our road program, it has to work parish-wide. In 1992, when I was elected, more than 2/3 of our roads were gravel. You can't say that anymore. I feel we have a successful capital outlay program, and to have a successful drainage program, everything has to be worked parish-wide, working together, and that's the last thing I want to say.
Well, and thank you, sir. We do appreciate it again, Mr. Randy Delatte from Parish Council District 8. That is the southeastern part of Livingston Parish. It is a large geographical area. Springfield and Killian are within it. He came to talk to us today about drainage and parish-wide drainage. It does, water flows downstream, and a lot of it flows out of the parish through his district. It's currently unfunded. There was an unsuccessful attempt to get it funded in 2017, but you heard from him how he would do it a little differently, but he's also pushing for some parish-wide drainage implements to try to help everyone out, because we're all dealing with the rain when it comes through. Again, sir, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate you taking the time. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us today for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. Want to remind you guys, we are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays. It comes straight to your mailbox for $7 a month. We are also online. We post these shows, audio and video versions, for free at www.livingstonparishnews.com. We hope you all have a great day. We hope we gave you something to think about, as we do have a lot of parish-wide issues to be considering. And do not forget, the road program tax is on the ballot this fall. Qualifying actually began today for a lot of seats that are coming up for election this fall. We appreciate you guys joining us again. Appreciate you taking the time, sir. And we do hope you guys have a great day. We will see you next time.